Hello, everyone, and welcome to Protech's latest webinar series. I'm Brian Smith, part of the marketing team here at Protech, and I'm really excited to have you all here tuning in. With us today are Web Scribble CEO and co-founder Alexey Gutin and the National Association of Social Workers Senior Marketing Specialist Shawnna Kerns, and they will be discussing how to align your organization in the Great Resignation era. Before we begin, I do want to give just a little information about those of you joining our webinar for the first time. Protech is an association management software provider that leverages the Microsoft Dynamics 365 cloud ecosystem and Power Platform to help you improve online experiences for members, staff, and leadership. You can follow us on social media, check us out on LinkedIn and Facebook, and follow us on Twitter at Protech Cloud for the latest trends in the AMS industry. And for all attendees, please note that you will receive a follow-up email with the recording of this webinar later this evening, and there will be information regarding CAE credit approval for those looking to fulfill your professional development requirements. And lastly, we encourage you to ask as many questions as you'd like to our presenters. You can do so in the questions tab on your GoToWebinar dashboard. And without further delay, let's turn things over to our presenters. Take it away.
Thanks, Brian, and thanks, Shawnna, again for joining us here. Great to have a partner present, and we'll talk a little bit about career centers and some of the trends that we've been seeing. So just to kind of give everyone a little bit of a framework around what we want to cover today, I'm going to kick things off, talk a little bit about the current state of employment and kind of the recruiting industry, what we're seeing in terms of what your members might be experiencing, as well as the employers trying to recruit them. Take definitely a deep dive into some of the job seeker behavior and trends that we are seeing holistically across all the different career centers that we work with, as well as some of the challenges that our employers are having in terms of recruiting and bringing on new talent. And then definitely talk about how your career center can help your members and navigate that next step in the job market that we're currently experiencing, and some kind of tips and some advice on how to attract and retain talent, reduce some of that staff turnover. And Shawnna will cover a little bit about what she's seen at the National Association of Social Workers and some of the success they've had helping members navigate this environment, and some of the success that they've had over the last year or so. So I think to kind of kick things off, a little bit about us. Oops, one slide ahead here. Before I get into the industry, just a little bit about Web Scribble. We're the leading technology provider for career centers for associations. We work with hundreds of associations across the United States as well as internationally, and provide a really solid platform that drives member engagement, member retention, and non-dues revenue for the partners that we work with. And to take a step back, I guess, to kind of set the stage of kind of what was happening about a year ago and where are we today. I think one of the easiest ways for me to look at it is, what was going on with job boards, which is one of the top ways that employers recruit for talent. A year ago, roughly a year and a half ago or so, in March and April, obviously the country shut down and hiring halted to a near stop across most industries. And as a result, the job boards, the main ones that you see out there today, the leaders like ZipRecruiter, Indeed, Monster, Career Builder, suffered almost immediate impacts on revenue. And as a result, had to make some really substantial layoffs across the entire industry that we had not seen ever, at least at the speed and scale that this occurred. At one point last year, job postings across Indeed and most other job boards were down 50–60%. And overall, the year ended with job postings being down 25% year over year, as there was some sort of recovery towards the tail end of 2020. Fast forward to today, sometime in June, July, August of this year, the industry looks really different. ZipRecruiter actually went public, even though they laid almost half their staff off in March. They very much recovered, went public, and had one of their best quarters in Q2 of this year, and had a really solid Q3 as well, actually. Indeed, which is the leading job board in the United States, is forecasting 65–75% revenue growth year over year. And their fiscal year is actually April to March, so they expect this growth to continue well into 2022. And what we're seeing across the entire industry is that job postings are up, anywhere from 60 to 80% in the first half of 2021 compared to 2020. And as we round out the year at Web Scribble across our career centers, we're seeing it job postings up year over year in the high 80s. And so nearly all industries have returned to pre-pandemic hiring levels, even ones that were kind of devastated for quite a while, being shut down and unable to kind of operate like they did before COVID. And so, what I guess another way to look at it is, what happened, what drove a lot of that change in the job board world and in the recruiting world. And to set the stage of kind of how quickly it happened and the mass enormous scale at which it happened, I wanted to go back 15 years to kind of give you an idea of, what unemployment looked like and how it spiked during the Great Recession and how long it took to recover for context. And so the Bureau of Labor Statistics puts out a lot of interesting information, obviously, about what's going on in the workforce. And one of the things they put out is how many people are unemployed versus the number of open jobs. And during the Great Recession, this kind of ratio increased pretty dramatically, but it took 2 years for that to peak, where there was almost 6.5 people actually unemployed that were looking for work and not enough jobs for them. So there's 6.5 people looking for work for the one job. And that rate actually dropped dramatically, but it took a really long time. It took almost a full decade to get to the levels we started seeing between 2018 and the early part of 2020. And during that 2-year period, there was actually more jobs open than there were people looking. And so there was very much a war for talent up until February of last year. And as the government shut down in March, everything just turned upside down and spiked. Unemployment spiked to almost 14% in April, and job postings dropped. And so there was actually a lot of unemployed people, less job postings than normal. And that happened rather than taking 2 years to happen like it did over the Great Recession with a slow recovery. It spiked overnight. And the eventual recovery was actually very fast as well, which everyone was trying to predict at the time how quickly we would recover, whether it be the V, the U, the Nike shape, or so on. It looks more like the V at this point, somewhat, with a little bit of curve at the end. And in July of this year, we returned to pre-pandemic levels, meaning there was actually more jobs open than there were people looking. And as of last month, or whatever month the Bureau of Labor Statistics put out last, we were at the lowest levels we've ever seen in decades. And so there's actually significantly more jobs open than the number of people looking, creating a really, really challenging hiring environment for employers. So that's kind of sets the stage in terms of what happened in terms of job postings versus people looking. But to kind of further drive the point home is I wanted to cover kind of like what's happening in terms of job seeker activity. Are job seekers searching for jobs more or less? And how has that trended pre-pandemic to now? And one really easy way to look at that is to use a tool called Google Trends. And most job searches, or many job searches, do start on Google. So this is a good barometer to see how activity trends over time. And if you go back all the way to 2018, we had really robust job seeker searches and activity that increased in 2019. And at the beginning of 2020, we had some of the highest activity we had seen in years in terms of how many candidates and how many job seekers were potentially looking to make a change. March hit, that plummeted completely to the lowest levels we've seen in many, many years. And for a period of time, there was not a lot of employers hiring. People didn't even try to look, weren't searching for jobs, were afraid of COVID. And there was a lot of uncertainty for about 2 full quarters of last year. But then we started slowly opening the country back up. Employers started hiring again, and job seeker traffic recovered a little bit, but not to 2019 levels, not to 2018 levels, despite unemployment last year being pretty high for a good part of all of last year. And it really hasn't recovered since, which is kind of remarkable. Job seeker activity is basically the same for the last few quarters as it was the last few quarters last year. In fact, at the beginning of this year, in March and April, we saw some of the lowest activity we've seen in years. And then the last couple months, there's certainly seasonality from October or November to December. As the holidays approach, it is normal for activity to dip, but we're dipping to levels again that we haven't seen in 5 or 6 or 7 years, or maybe even longer. And so what's happened, and I know Shawnna's going to talk about this, and her results are atypical, and they're seeing the opposite of this. But across all the different associations that we work with, and what we're seeing in the industry, job seeker traffic is definitely down, which means there's less people applying to jobs, and basically employers are getting less applicants to choose from when they want to fill a role. There's a lot of contributing factors to this. I don't think there's one single answer, and I'm not sure I even have all the answers covered in this slide. But in the beginning part of 2021, or at least for a good part of it, it was thought that maybe unemployment was a contributing, unemployment benefits were a contributing factor. Eventually they ran out and things didn't improve. So in hindsight, I'm not sure how much of that was a major contributing factor. I think ongoing concerns around COVID are very much a factor, especially around jobs that require in-person work. A lot of people took this time when things were shut down to advance their career, reskill, get a new certification, maybe even get a degree, and now are starting to consider re-entering the workforce as they complete that continuing education. And now with many states, with federal guidelines around vaccine mandates and many states implementing it in different ways, and many industries implementing or not implementing it in different ways, is also affecting some of this activity, and workers potentially resigning or leaving the workforce, or not wanting to re-enter the workforce, depending on what their beliefs are. And so it's been a slow year in terms of job seekers, for employers at least. And to compound the challenges for employers is to kind of circle back to the title of the webinar, which is the Great Resignation. And again, going through the Bureau of Labor Statistics, if you look at how many people, they call it a quit rate. Quit means someone resigned. It doesn't mean they left their industry. It probably means they left their job and moved to an employer in the same industry. We're seeing resignations double what they were 10 years ago. So about 3% of the workforce turned over last month, or maybe it was in September. September, October, this date is a little bit delayed as they put that out, but it's double what it was in January of 2010, I'm sorry. And if you look at this resignation rate or quit rate by sector or industry, it's up across the board compared to pre-pandemic levels, meaning more people are quitting now than they were in February of 2020 across all industries. And there's specific industries where this is particularly pronounced, like food services, hospitality, retail, a lot of professional and business services, manufacturing. All these industries are seeing more people leave and change jobs than ever before. But there's not a single, I don't think there's a single industry where there's less people resigning and moving jobs compared to pre-pandemic levels. And so what all this means is employers are having a hard time retaining their talent, and when their talent leaves, the job seeker activity that they're seeing is lower than ever, and they're having a hard time replacing the talent that left, and then on top of that, growing their staff and headcount and to support the business growth needs that they're aiming for. So it's a really, really challenging environment. And in terms of, to give you perspective in terms of job posting trends of what we're seeing across our career centers, that's grown dramatically this year. Going back to 2020 and kind of giving you an idea of where we started in February compared to where we are today, we certainly saw a dip. The bottom was around late April, early May, and then we started to see a pretty rapid recovery across all our career centers in terms of job posting volume. We were back at kind of pre-pandemic February levels in August, the industry as a whole was a little bit more delayed. Like Indeed came back to normal in December, I believe, but the career centers that we powered recovered a little bit quicker. So in August we were back to normal. There was a dip in November, December. That's, if you seasonally adjust that, that would kind of smooth this graph out a little bit. And then it's been kind of a steady rise the rest of the year for us through through November and well into December. We've seen a pretty steady rise in an increase in the number of job postings that we are seeing across all of the associations that we work with. And if you look at maybe a general job board like the Indeeds of the world, they put out really similar data. And so nearly actually, I think every industry is up across the board. And so they categorize it as sectors or industries that are doing maybe better than average, and worse than average. And even the industries that are worse than average, like hospitality, which was totally devastated for a good part of 2020, is up 19-20% compared to February, pre-pandemic levels this year. So it's a remarkable recovery that even the below the economy average still performing 20% better than pre-pandemic levels. Industries like HR, software, tech, science, manufacturing, logistics, media and communications, they are all up high double digits. And so it's been a remarkable kind of recovery and really a boom for the industry for us. And the other interesting part of data that Indeed puts out is around the type of work, or at least where people work, I should say. And they kind of split this up between low remote, meaning it's all in person, medium remote, which probably means hybrid. You spend a few days a week in the office, a few days at home, here and there. And high remote, which is either all remote or 4 days a week remote, 1 day in the office. And for the first time in I think ever, the number of high remote and medium remote positions actually exceeded the low remote positions. And so employers are definitely adjusting with kind of the demand of the job seeker, and job seekers are really starting to be able to pick and choose how they want to work, and whether that's fully remote, hybrid, or or if they want to be in person all the time. And so that's been a remarkable change in a very short period of time, as the industry has really shifted to this kind of hybrid and fully remote model. And so what does this all mean for employers? I think I've alluded to it a little bit, but at the end of the day, there's 7 million people out of work, but 10.5 million job openings today. And so there's only there's only 7 people for roughly 10 jobs out there. And so it's a hyper competitive hiring environment for employers. It means that when employers post a job, if they were used to having 10 candidates, they're going to have 7. It means that out of those 7, those same 7 candidates are being approached and aggressively recruited by many other employers. And so employers are having to spend more or allocate more recruitment advertising budget to get the same level of volume that they were seeing before, and to offer better benefits or better wages to the employees that they're trying to recruit, to get them to sign on board or make a change from their current employer. And so it's very much kind of been a seismic shift over a really short amount of time, roughly 12 months, from when unemployment was incredibly high to now it's incredibly low, and there's been a huge shift from employers being in the driver's seat to the job seekers very much being in the driver's seat today. And so for us at Web Scribble, from 2020, but especially this year, from a technology standpoint and from how we support our partners, it's very much been the year of the job seeker. And so everything we've thought about in terms of technology improvements or member benefits has been to help our partners and members navigate kind of this a lot of this uncertainty last year and kind of new uncertainty this year, whether that's helping them take that next step in their career, or to explore a new career path, evaluate whether their compensation and benefits are competitive, and so on. That's where we've really invested all of our time, our energy, and our R&D. And so for us as a platform, we what we like to see is the kind of the careers is it's not a singular thing. It's not just a job board. It's not your members need a job, they're going to go to the association job board, apply, and ultimately get hired. There's a lot of different steps along that journey. And so we like to kind of break it up into certainly getting the job, but also helping them find a job, on the job advice, and how to navigate a job offer and interview. And so for us, this is today it's a really fragmented space that we're trying to bring into one central hub. And so your members today might go to Glassdoor to research salary data. They might go to, they might go to a local career fair or a virtual career fair online. They might find a mentor through networking on LinkedIn or through the association. They might go to some other website to read about resume writing tips and how to interview. And we really help you bring all of these things into one central hub and make you, as the association, the go-to resource for everything related to your profession, so that when your members think of anything related to their career, you're the first ones that they go to. And we put a lot of energy into building kind of a unified platform to offer a ton of great member benefits for your members during these unusual times where they have a lot of choices, a lot of different paths they can take. We want to help them make the right next step and help them evaluate offers and salary information, give them interviewing tips, and certainly match them with relevant jobs that they might be interested in. So that's kind of where, from our standpoint, at least across all of the partners that we work with, kind of holistically how we see the market and how it's trended. But I want to turn it over now to Shawnna to talk a little bit about the National Association of Social Workers, a little bit about what you're seeing in the industry and some of the trends you've seen over the last over the last 12 months or so.
Awesome, thank you. Yes, so I'm the Senior Marketing Specialist with NASW. Just to give you a little bit of background, we were founded in 1955 and we're the largest social work membership organization in the world. We have over 50 chapters in the US territories. And our mission statement, briefly, is NASW works to enhance the professional growth and development of our members, to create and maintain professional standards of social workers, and to advance sound social policies. So we're really just here to help social workers enhance the profession and do their job as effectively as possible. Okay, so let's see. A social worker is a helping occupation. Basically, they are the epitome of overworked and underpaid. That was the first thing that I learned when I started with NASW. They provide services such as advocacy, policy, crisis response, communities, and helping clients connect with the resources that they need. Many social workers have six-figure debt from their education because a lot of positions will require a master's. There's BSW, which is Bachelor's of Social Work, but a lot do require the Master's of Social Work. And the median wage for a social worker is about $51,000, $52,000 as of May 2020, which does not effectively pay off student loans as fast as one would like. There are about 78,300 openings for social workers projected each year on average. And the employment for social workers is expected to grow by 12% in the next 10 years. Wow, it's hard to believe it's almost 2022. Many job openings right now are a result of social workers transferring to different locations. Some of it is from them completely leaving the profession. I actually have a couple of friends who have been social workers and decided to leave altogether. One of the big things is burnout, and it can really kind of get to them, but especially right now with them being frontline essential workers, a lot of it is just transferring to different positions in the field. According to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, there are more than 715,000 social work jobs in the US in 2020, and that's kind of actually on par with what we know about how many social workers there are in the United States in general. So now we can move on to just kind of different types of social workers, which there are a lot. I think we have over 27, 28 categories in our database, and that's not even broken down all the way that you can break it down. There's a social worker in every kind of setting. Like I said, there's the Bachelor's of Social Work, BSW, but preferred is MSW most of the time. But some different kinds of social workers are child and family, healthcare, mental health, substance abuse, homelessness and housing, addiction and substance abuse, LGBTQIA+, aging and palliative care. The list goes on. One of the biggest types of social worker that I actually didn't really think about until I started here as well is the advocacy, social justice, and policy. And that's really working with, policy advocating for social workers, to do with their job. It's just a whole different slew that I am still, after 4 years, not completely up to, but it is a huge part of social work. And we can move on to talking a little bit about the Career Center. So we switched from another Career Center provider just because our sales weren't doing well. The member engagement was down. We weren't where we wanted to be. So we switched to Web Scribble, and we have had unbelievable results. During the first year, we were able to increase our non-dues revenue by 120%, which is even just crazy to say out loud. We hosted a career fair for the first time, I think, in 3 or 4 years, and we had an insane turnout, over almost 1,115 attendees and over 80 exhibitors or employers, which is huge. Especially, it was in the peak of COVID, height of COVID, where a lot of people were worried about losing their jobs, and people's budgets were really down. So we were really surprised by the turnout, pleasantly so. The number of jobs on our career board have tripled, and overall job seeker engagement grew by 4 times. The team that I've worked with has been amazing. They're very inventive when it comes to ways of increasing revenue and just getting the jobs out there. So we've come up with some new revenue streams that we hadn't done before, that were thanks to the Web Scribble team, that have provided a lot more revenue, and they've been a real success. We haven't heard anything negative, which, if you're in associations, no news is good news when it comes from your members. So we're really happy with the way that things have been running. It's really easy to use in the front end, and most importantly, it's super easy to use in the back end. Pulling and reporting is the bane of my existence, and the new update, even in the back end of Web Scribble since we started, has just become light years easier to use. Thank you guys for that, because like I said, not a report puller. As I was saying, overall job seeker and employer activity level has been up. Q1 this year, we saw a big increase in job seeker activity. Q3 this year, we saw a big spike in the number of jobs posted. We are going to do another virtual career fair. I believe it's at the end of January in 2022. So we're hoping for an even bigger turnout since things are on the rise. We've been lucky to see the complete opposite of what Alexey was talking about. We never really saw a dip with the Great Resignation. As like I said, social workers being on the front line, it's gone up for us. We've seen a spike, which is good and bad, but I like to think of it as a good thing for our revenue. Some of the things that we do outside of the actual job board for our career center is we have a whole kind of site dedicated to resources. We have tips and tools for job seekers, like resume building, interview tips. We have webinars from previous sessions that we've done, just helping anyone who is job searching. People who are even just thinking about joining the social work profession, we have webinars talking about what it's like to come into the profession, what you need to know, the education that you need. We've got resources for students that are going to be joining the workforce shortly, and that's a really big one for us because we work with a lot of social work schools that are starting to roll over the new generation of social workers. And we usually try to tie our career center back to career development. You know, why not make more money? So we usually tie them back to our CE Institute and show them resources that they can earn CE for, that they can purchase webinars and stuff like that. We're also planning to do a career building workshop at our upcoming conference in June, and that's going to be in person. And we usually like to record those as well and have them as webinars available later to people who couldn't make it. I am a fast talker, so that is pretty much all I have.
Yeah, really appreciate the context, Shawnna, and so the insight. Yeah, it's been a kind of a great year for the Career Center for Social Workers, and a great year for a lot of the associations that we work with, and to kind of tie things up here, and definitely want to open it to question is, you know, this year has been almost like the polar opposite of last year in terms of you know, who was in the driver's seat. Last year it was, I would say, very much employers, and this year it's really rapidly become very much the job seeker, and hiring has become difficult across every industry. I don't think there's a single stone that's been unturned in terms of how difficult hiring is, and some industries are particularly hard. Workers are very much in the driver's seat, and employers are definitely picking up on, you know, what they need to do to be competitive in terms of acquiring talent and retaining it, and become more flexible in terms of how their employees work, the benefits that they're offered, the wages that are paid. All of these things have become really good for you know, for the job seeker, and it's kind of really made employers have to put their best foot forward to get the best talent. And I think it puts the association partners that we work with in a really good position to be, you know, a really key resource for all of these employers looking to bring in really specialized, really high quality talent that they, you know, that they would have trouble finding any other place. So that's, I think we're both fast talkers, Shawnna. So I think that wraps up kind of what, at least the formal presentation that we wanted to cover. Definitely wanted to open it up to questions. Brian, I don't know if we got any yet.
I will speak to one more thing real quick, and this is kind of gonna show my naiveness, but I actually hadn't even heard of the term the Great Resignation until we started discussing this webinar, because we had seen none of it. We saw the complete opposite, and we have done so much virtual stuff that I'm just like in the zone and everything else is white noise. But yeah, it was kind of news to me. I was like, what? That's happening?
Yeah, the dynamics can certainly change fast. I do want to thank you both. We did get a couple of questions. Figure we can just jump right in. And for the attendees still with us, definitely feel free to put your questions in the question tab in the GoToWebinar dashboard. But we did get one from Marie. She asked, for those who may no longer be eligible for unemployment benefits, are they included in the statistics quoted? If so, how do you find their number? This was about halfway through the presentation.
Yeah, so in terms of, I think that's probably alluding to the kind of the job seeker trends that I was reviewing. Those are just pure trends that I pulled from Google. So this is actually, we don't know if they have unemployment benefits, or if they're running out, or or if they still have unemployment benefits. And so if you look at just raw data of how many job searchers are there across in the United States, it's down 20, 30, 40% compared to 2018 and 2019, which is levels we haven't seen in many years. And so, yeah, I think I think that there was discussions earlier this year that that this shortage of workers will start to dissipate as unemployment benefits run out and employers won't have as hard of a time hiring. That has not become true. It's very much just as hard, if not harder, than it was at the beginning of the year.
Absolutely. We did get a question before from one of our registrants, and I think it would be a good way to kind of wrap up the discussion as well. This is from Patricia. She says, as a previous executive team member of an association and as part of the big resignation community, I'm interested in what expectations I might seek as I look for a more equitable next career.
Yeah, I think you're in the driver's seat. I think you know, especially someone with a lot of experience, especially someone at the executive level, I think you bring a lot to the table. And I think, you know, in terms of the kind of work you want to do, how you want to work, where you want to work, and maybe even, you know, the level of work in terms of seniority, I think you know, I think you're in a good position to be in the driver's seat of that next step. And I think there'd be a lot of competition for, you know, for someone with that kind of strong background.
Awesome. Just checking our questions. We do have one more question here. This one was alluding to mandatory vaccinations and how that might have an impact in people leaving organizations, but I think it might be better to perhaps maybe broaden the question for both of you to perhaps answer, you know, what factors do you think are most impacting people's decisions in leaving their organizations? You know, maybe like a top three, or just what are you hearing from the conversations that you two are having and people that are changing careers or at least considering it?
Yeah, I'll take the first stab at it. Shawnna, feel free to jump in. There's I don't think it's one central thing. You know, I wish I had a magic and a silver bullet for why everyone, you know, why one singular reason why people are leaving. In terms of mandates, there's definitely, you know, certain industries where the mandates are very firm, like healthcare. You know, if you're a nurse, they're mandating vaccinations, and some people, you know, don't want to do that, and they're resigning and maybe going becoming a traveling nurse and working in a different state where they don't have those mandates, and so it's geographic based. It's certainly profession based as well. That's a big part of it, but also, you know, with so many jobs out there and so few people applying, you know, candidates can switch entire careers within reason, at least, and make a pretty big change, and that also contributes to, you know, to a lot of what we're seeing in terms of the Great Resignation. People are either getting a better job with a better employer that treats them more fairly, or hey, they spent a year and a half reskilling, retooling their you know, their skills, and now they're set up for success in terms of an entirely new career that they you know, wouldn't be able to achieve otherwise. Shawnna, I don't know if you have any kind of input from your side on the social workers front, especially since you haven't seen the Great Resignation.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard much about the social work setting because they are frontline. You know, they're pretty much guaranteed to be masked up, and in situations where vaccination is mandatory, I think, for the most part. I can't speak to every instance. I will speak on a personal level where I was on flights the weekend that they canceled, I think, like 1,000 of those Southwest flights due to a technical difficulty, which actually turned out to be a strike because of the vaccination mandate from the pilots and staff. So, I mean, it's out there. We do work in Washington, D.C. Our national office is located in D.C. And it was one of the hot spots, being a major metropolitan area, and just the back and forth with our office about mask mandates and different regulations has been a lot. I can only imagine people who, you know, have to, like myself, I used to Metro every day. Some of the considerations that they have to make if the employer doesn't want to mandate vaccinations. It's just so hard to say, like you were to pin down. There are so many moving factors around it, and there still are. So,
Right,
Absolutely.
for sure. Yeah, definitely. It's a combination of factors, just plus the timing, just as the trends that we alluded to at the beginning of the presentation. Thank you so much for the input. We did get another question as we were discussing further. For Shawnna, what would you attribute the 120% increase in revenue to when you switched to Web Scribble?
Alexey, this will make you happy. The team really just found running. I'm not just saying it to say it. I was very impressed. The transition was super easy from the old job board to Web Scribble. They really took a lot of initiative in reaching out to our past employers, to everyone. They gave us a lot of really good marketing material that I got to push out to our members and our database, letting them know that we did transition to a new job board, highlighting some of the new features. I don't personally work with a lot of sales on my side, so it definitely wasn't me. I deal with mostly the members. So it was the Web Scribble team just really taking the initiative, kind of seeing what had been done obviously wasn't working, and making the moves and strides to change that. And definitely one of my favorite things about the team that I'm working with on Web Scribble right now is, like I was saying earlier, some of the more innovative and out of the box ways that we have been able to get additional revenue, just things that I hadn't thought of before, like charging for social media posts, different newsletters, different dedicated email blasts, banners, just like everything that you can think of, ways to get revenue. Money is money. I'm like, have at it. So it's really been great for us financially.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. It's a win-win, really. Helping members
and
with
like
their careers and helping revenue on your end.
Yeah, and especially in associations, a lot of times you only hear most of the time it's negative when it comes from your members, unfortunately. I'm not saying that that's all the time. We do get good things too, but the career switch happened, the platforms, it was really easy because we didn't hear anything, and that is great for us. So yeah, it was really good for the members too. It was a pretty seamless transition.
Yeah, I appreciate
Awesome.
that. And Sean and the team have been, a very nimble and really, really great partner. That's really been a pleasure to work with in terms of, some of these strategies that we suggested. They've been really receptive to and executed it really quickly. So that definitely contributed a lot. The level of engagement from their side has been really, really great. So it's allowed us to accelerate some of that growth.
Yeah, and that's not to say we haven't had flops. We've definitely had flops. I'll give an example since we have some time. We did a social media post, and one of the purchasers, social workers are very attuned to, obviously, social justice and kind of like the emotional aspect. So one of the companies that we posted about didn't have the best reputation. So we got a lot of negative feedback from our members on that, but that was just an oversight on NASW's part, our part, of not, thoroughly checking the companies for what they stand for and stuff. But a simple remove of that, and we kept out with the social posts, and they've still made us so much money. And that's the only time we really had anything negative pop up. So try everything. That is my advice. Anything that will suggest that can make you money, like, you might as well give it a shot. Either it works or it doesn't, and then you move on.
That's a good, awesome answer. I appreciate it. It looks like that is all of the questions that we have for today. Do we want to, any closing thoughts from, either of you, what you two are going to be paying attention to going forward as the Great Resignation kind of continues, so to speak?
Yeah, looking forward to seeing what happens next year. I think we're gonna see a really competitive, kind of the same competitive environment that we've seen in a good part of this year. I think we're going to see it for all of next year. I think it's going to continue to be, very much a war for talent for employers, and I think associations are really well positioned to be a really good resource for employers to try to recruit from in terms of high skill, highly educated employees.
Yeah, personally, I think one of the main things that I would like to focus on when it comes to our career workshop at our conference is how to make social workers stand out in the interview process. I have, like I said, a lot of friends right now who are also in the job market, and that has been, I think, a common thing amongst everyone is it's really tough right now. How do you make yourself stand out? So I think that's one thing that we really want to focus on to help our members is helping them stand out, get that job, and differentiate themselves amongst the other super qualified, talented candidates.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. I think that was a great way to wrap it up. There's a lot to consider and a lot of trends and insights shared today. So I will wrap up today's session. I want to thank again our presenters for meeting and discussing all the new and unique ways associations are reaching out to job seekers. For those of you looking to receive CAE credit for this webinar, Protech, again, will send an email confirming your attendance later this evening. In that email, you will also receive a link to our webinar recording today. And keep an eye out for our next webinar in January. More information will be released in the coming weeks, so don't forget to connect with Protech on LinkedIn and Facebook, or follow us on Twitter at Protech Cloud for more information on our upcoming events and AMS technology. So thanks again, everyone, and have a great afternoon. Thank you all so much.